I think my wife and kids are actors. Part 3. I dropped the remains of my phone on the floor and grabbed the frame. Fumbling to get the picture out, I resorted to smashing the frame onto the shelf instead. Glass now sprinkling around me. I quickly recovered the picture I got from the box and laid them both out on the kitchen counter. They were identical. Well, apart from me missing from one, they were. Mary and the kids had the exact same facial expression on both, and the position of their hands were also the same. Either had been photoshopped into one, or photoshopped out of the other. To be honest, I didn't know which one I preferred. I had no recollection of the picture ever being taken, but then again, my memory was rather flimsy these days. I sat down, trying desperately to shake something loose, any memory at all. But there was nothing. Literally nothing. How on earth did it take me so long to notice? The brain is a curious thing, you see. It will hide away all that bad shit if it means it's protecting you somehow. Like if there's some trauma it just doesn't want you to revisit, or some dark secret it doesn't want you to know. The funny thing is, you won't always realize you've forgotten. You'll rather gather the pieces of what you have and fill in the blanks with whatever makes sense to you personally, and you'll be none the wiser. Until your patchwork story starts to fall apart. The more I thought about what was missing, the more I realized I could be misremembering just about anything. I had no real grasp on reality. What had happened to me? What kind of accident had caused this? According to my doctors, no one seemed to know. They just found me unconscious on the ground, my neck broken. They assumed I had fallen off the scaffolding of the building site I was overseeing. But since there were no witnesses, and I couldn't remember a damn thing, it remained a mystery. And who exactly were my employers? This question was haunting me. I'd never considered it before now, but I really couldn't seem to remember what my company's name was, or who my boss was. Did I have a boss? All I recalled was that it had something to do with construction. I'd spent a lot of time on construction sites and in airports. Overseeing? That's the word the doctors used. It was nearing dawn, and the darkness was slowly retreating as I headed to the front door. I was contemplating going to the police, but I had no idea what to tell them. My wife, the actor, and my kids, the actors, had gone missing? Then I had to explain that maybe they weren't actors, and that I had recently suffered a head and neck injury that could mean I was just imagining it all. I'm no police officer, but I would promptly show myself to the door if that was my call. No, I had just one tangible clue, Vernon and Love. They definitely seemed dodgy on the phone, and I couldn't shake that strange feeling that came over me when that woman, Gladys, called me Jesse. I had no car, so I had no choice but to walk downtown. It would take me about an hour, but at least I'd get the chance to clear my head. The walk was largely uneventful, but I did realize that I had never walked downtown before. Isn't that strange? I bought the house 11 years ago when Mary was pregnant with Aaron. Or was she? But I couldn't for the life of me recall ever walking anywhere. What a wasted life, I depressingly pondered, as I finally stood before an anonymous, neglected brick building where the offices of Vernon and Love were supposed to be located. The front door was barely on its hinges, and an eerie scraping noise echoed through empty hallways when I pushed it open. There were no signs of life anywhere, let alone any semblance of a thriving law practice. I wandered the bleak hallways of the first floor for 10 minutes, peering through every open door, finding nothing but long abandoned, decaying offices. I was about to climb the rather off-putting stairs when I heard the distinct sounds of the elevator in motion. I had ignored the elevator because of the state this place was in. It didn't even occur to me that it might still be operational. Not quite knowing what to expect, I hid inside the office opposite to the elevator, nervously hugging the wall. What was my plan exactly? Jump out and scare them? I had no idea. But my mind kept insisting we stay put, so my body confusedly obliged. I could hear a loud ding as the elevator doors opened with a screeching noise, and then the rustling sound of feet pacing down the hall. A woman, I guessed, and stuck my head out of the door to confirm. But whoever it was had turned the corner and was nowhere to be seen. I quickly darted into the elevator just before the doors closed. Staring at the panel, I had no idea which floor to choose, so I just pressed one blindly. I had the strangest feeling of déjà vu, like I had been in this elevator doing the exact same thing, but before I was allowed to explore the sensation, the elevator stopped and the doors dinged open. I got out carefully and crept down another empty hallway, littered with decaying offices, but something felt different. I had a strong sense I'd been here before. In the White Room. The image of the room blinked in and out of my mind, and my body was now doing its own thing. Muscle memory, I guess they call it. It was like I was just a passenger along for the ride, as my feet carried me down endless hallways, turning left and right, seemingly at random. After about 5 minutes of this, I spotted the door at the end of the hallway. It stood out like a gaping wound in its surroundings, the unwholesomeness red presence in stark contrast to the crumbling off-white walls. I dreaded what awaited me on the other side, but I couldn't help it. I had virtually no control at this point. With a swift movement, my hand reached the handle, and I yanked the door open. The White Room. It was blindingly white, like the walls were reflecting light back on themselves. I suspect it was just a very white coat of paint, but it felt so unreal there and then as I was standing in the doorway, taking it all in. In the middle of the room, 3 rather ordinary office chairs were placed, only one of which was occupied. "You!" I halfway shouted at the creepily smiling man facing me. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. Angry? Confused? Furious? All I knew was that it didn't really surprise me, so whatever emotion was desperately trying to overcome me did so to no avail. Instead, I just kept staring at him and his unnecessarily unpleasant grin, and sat down in the chair opposite. "You came around," he said. "I knew you would eventually." "I have no idea what you're on about," I said through gritted teeth, "but you better have some answers." The old man threw his head back and laughed. It wasn't a jolly old laugh. More like the kind you'd expect coming from the hidden cells of an insane asylum. The sound startled me, I'll admit it, and I spent a few seconds gathering my composure. Eventually, the echoing madness receded, and we sat again in silence. "You're still not fully here, then," the creepy old man whispered. "Such a shame." What did he mean, not here? I examined the man with what was starting to feel like murderous intent. He was old, that much was clear. Completely bald, short, thin. But there was something really off-putting about his general presence that I couldn't quite put my finger on. He stood up from the chair, his fine blue suit now noticeably several sizes too large. His long red tie flapped wildly about his neck for a few moments as he turned to face the wall. "We need you here," he said, presumably to me and not the wall. "You have something we desire." "We?" I asked. Who are we?" The man turned to face me again, his ominous grin widening as his gaze wandered to the ceiling. "Why, the company, of course," he said. "We are all so grateful for all the hard work you've done for us, all the grueling hours, days, weeks, months, and years. But it would have all been for nothing if you didn't come back from your last mission." I buried my head in my hands. It didn't make sense. This didn't sound like something a construction overseer would have to deal with at all. What in God's name had I gotten myself involved in? And why couldn't I remember any of it? It had to be the accident. That much seemed obvious. But was it even an accident then? Or something far more sinister? I snapped back to reality by the sound of the door opening. "Ah," the old man said. "You are here. Maybe she can help you come back to us." I turned to the door, expecting to see Lisa Guerin, or whatever her real name was. I was actually looking forward to speaking with her. Maybe she could tell me why the name Jessie felt so eerily familiar. "Mary," I gasped. "What are you doing here?" This is Kinetic Symphony. If you've enjoyed this narrated story, please subscribe and like the video to help me grow. Thank you.